Good afternoon, I'm Edwin Gao.
And I'm Cheryl Cosim. You are watching One News special coverage of the President's fifth State of the Nation address. This year's SONA comes at a very challenging time when countries around the world are grappling with the effects of the coronavirus pandemic.
And joining us in covering the President's penultimate SONA is the full force of News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. Our correspondents from News 5 will give us the latest developments from the lower house, the Senate, and the palace.
And we are approximately an hour away from hearing the president. What we know so far is that the chief executive, according to Malacanang officials, will primarily tackle the government's approach to the pandemic moving forward.
And let's now get some updates from Maricel Halili, who is joining us live from the TV5 newsroom. Mase, do we know exactly what time the program will start? Traditionally, it's at 4 o'clock. And more importantly, where will it be done? Will it be in the Batasan as originally scheduled, or will it be in Malacanang?
And it seems that Plan A will push through. President Duterte will personally go to Congress to give his fifth State of the Nation address. And we're expecting him to start his SONA at around 4 o'clock this afternoon if he will come on time. And we asked some of the Malacanang officials. They told us that probably from Malacanang, the president will ride a chopper going to Congress. At around 2:45 this afternoon, we already received a photo from presidential spokesperson Harry Roque showing some of the members of the cabinet on standby in Congress, waiting for the SONA to start. Some of the cabinet secretaries in the photo are Secretary Nograles, Secretary Roque, Secretary Panelo, Interior Secretary Año. There's also Defense Secretary Lorenzana, Finance Secretary Dominguez, among others.
And based on the rehearsals that was done last night, yesterday, how long will the speech be?
Cheryl, if the president will not give any ad-lib, Secretary Andanar said probably it will take around an hour to 1 hour and 20 minutes if there won't be any ad-lib.
So that might be shorter than last year's, because last year was an hour and 33 minutes. But then again, may mga ad-lib yan eh.
13 minutes short.
Now we understand that originally the plan was to cancel the trip to the Batasan if somebody is found to be COVID positive among those attending today. Pero we understand,
So far,
pito
na daw,
ata
seven.
positive.
Yes.
So the president is still pushing through despite that earlier plan to have it in Malacanang instead?
Yes, Ed. The president will still go to Malacanang despite the fact that 7 of the technical support staff of the PCOO tested COVID positive this morning. Probably they made some adjustment to make sure that everything is safe once the president go to Batasan. But they will still push through with Plan A because, well, recall that Plan B is that PCOO has already prepared the Rizal Hall in Malacanang. If there's a huge number of attendees that can be tested positive. But so far, Malacanang officials, the Presidential Security Group, and the organizers from Congress decided to push through with Plan A.
Sa bagay, PCOO is actually Malacanang based. So kung sila yung positive, it shouldn't make that much of a difference.
Not much difference.
Although Rizal Hall is quite far from the new executive
also
building where the PCOO staff stay.
Usually, pag malapit na yung speech ng Pangulo, yung SONA, pag palapit na yung oras, may mga leak na yan kung ano yung lalamanin ng kanyang speech. Meron ba tayong alam kung have we heard anything, kung ano yung pinaka-highlight talaga ng kanyang SONA this year?
Cheryl, so far, yun pa rin yung binibigay sa atin na nakafocus sa roadmap, yung magiging State of the Nation address ng Pangulong Duterte. So, expect pa natin na magko-concentrate siya on COVID-19. May nabanggit din kanina na mga possibilities si Secretary Andanar, like kung baka meron siyang mga bills na gustong ipasa sa Congress, ipapanawagan niya. And then, baka yung mga frontliners, bigyan din niya ng ilang mga recognition. But these are just possibilities. Kasi ang sabi nga ni Secretary Andanar, meron pa rin namang mga last-minute changes, depende yan sa Pangulo, if he wants to edit out some parts of the original script. So, tingnan natin, kasi ilan din dun sa mga inaantabayanan natin, like yung mga anti-terrorism law. Kasi, di ba, tsaka yung bayanihan, 2, baka may mabanggit din siya. Ilan to dun sa mga inaantabayanan natin? Kasi it seems na yung budget, traditionally kasi yung budget isinasabay sa SONA pag susumite Pero mukhang hindi siya masasabay today. Ang target yata ng Department of Budget and Management, most likely by August na nila maisusumite. Anyway, they still have until August 27 to submit the proposed budget for 2021.
Okay. And the budget will already take into account, the proposed budget will already take into account the post-COVID expenses. Kumbaga, ito yung, well, among other things, yung increased spending for healthcare and so on down the line.
Yes, tama, Ed. Kasama na to dun sa consideration ng DBM kasi ayaw na raw nila na maulit yung nangyari for 2020 budget wherein kailangan pa nilang magkaroon ng realignment and kaunting adjustment because nobody expected na magkakaroon tayo ng pandemic. So, they take into account yung issue ng mga unexpected disease like yung COVID-19 doon sa 2021 national budget.
All right. Maraming salamat, Maricel Halili, reporting live from the newsroom.
And it's still Plan A, as you heard, for the President's fifth SONA. That's despite at least 7 invitees testing positive for COVID-19 ahead of the address. To give us the latest, Shaila Francisco is reporting live from the Batasan, Pambansa. Shaila, anong pinakabago dyan?
Bok, Cheryl, President Duterte will still deliver his first State of the Nation address at the traditional Batasang Pambansa as planned. However, some invitees won't make it to the event. At least 7 attendees contracted the virus ahead of the address. That's as all of them were required to undergo rapid and RT-PCR tests before the event. The palace did not release the names of these individuals. But this morning, Deputy Speaker Johnny Pimentel announced that he tested positive after taking an RT-PCR test on Sunday. He is the 23rd COVID-positive individual from the House of Representatives. Around 50 people were supposed to be physically present during the speech this afternoon. These include cabinet secretaries and lawmakers. However, Vice President Leni Robredo disclosed she was only invited to attend virtually along with the rest of the lawmakers. President Duterte's speech is expected to last up to 1 hour and 20 minutes, ad-libs not included. House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano says the chief executive will likely focus on the country's COVID-19 response. Look, Cheryl, we were there in front of Batasang Pambansa earlier. It's quieter compared to the past years. We haven't seen any crowds or many people outside. So we expect outside Batasang Bansa will be more peaceful compared to the previous years. Bok, Cheryl.
Shaila, as you mentioned, 7, no? Nasa 7 yung nagpapositibo sa COVID-19. Do you know if lahat ito nanggaling sa Congress or halo-halo na yan?
Cheryl, wala pang balita kung ilan dito yung galing sa Congress. They haven't disclosed the names yet. But from what we know, Congressman Johnny Pimentel is already included in the list of the 7 attendees who tested positive for the virus. Cheryl?
Shaila, well, clearly wala ka sa Kongreso. I suppose sa Commonwealth Avenue ka. Tell us about the arrangements right now. Bakit wala kayo sa Kongreso? Sino na pinapayagan sa Kongreso? Are the media even allowed anywhere near Congress? And the same goes for the other people who may want or may have wanted to take part in the SONA. Anong arrangements?
Bok, as mentioned earlier, only 50 will be allowed to attend the event. The media is not allowed to go inside. We can only rely on RTVM live feed or text messages or contacts from the lawmakers. Now, earlier we were there outside Batasang Pambansa, but some policemen were already signaling us to move away. They don't want any media around the complex. And
Shaila, teka, medyo konting sneak preview na rin kasi of course you do remember the arrangement previously last year yung 1521 formula between Speaker Cayetano at si Congressman Lord Alan Velasco ng Marinduque, kung saan may hatian sila, and supposedly by October this year, si Lord Alan na yung uupo bilang Speaker. Any word that, is that still a go?
Yes, Bok, based on the statement of House Speaker Alan Cayetano, he will honor the speakership deal with Congressman Lord Alan Velasco. The arrangement is they will change the House Speaker and 2 more committee chairs, but the rest will still remain the same, Ed.
All right.
Okay, maraming salamat. Shala Francisco reporting live from near the Batasang Pambansa.
Along Commonwealth Avenue. Senate opened session today with 17 lawmakers physically present. Some senators zeroed in on the alleged widespread corruption in state health insurer PhilHealth.
And now we have Mian Los Baños in Pasay City to let us know how the session went down today or this morning. Mian, what did the senators talk about? Mukhang investigasyon kagad ang nasa isip nila.
Tama, Bok, no? And Cheryl, as the second regular session resumed today, Senator Panfilo Lacson filed a resolution calling for an inquiry on the alleged rampant corruption in PhilHealth amid COVID-19 pandemic.
All senators will have the chance to interrogate PhilHealth officials tagged in the alleged massive corruption in the agency. Lacson wants a committee of the whole to be constituted for the probe. Senate President Soto agrees, saying the issue is not only about health or violations of public officials, as irregularities that took place during the pandemic might result in the institution's financial collapse. Lawmakers are expected to explore how the alleged corruption will affect implementation of the Universal Healthcare Law, which largely depends on PhilHealth funds.
There will be 3 or 4 other witnesses, and I am now receiving issues from different groups and different associations against the way PhilHealth is being run.
Soto said there are already witnesses who are willing to produce paper trail to prove the corruption allegations.
Last time, na pinag-uusapan itong mga issues ng PhilHealth, puro aligasyon na walang ebidensya. Ang inaasahan ko sa investigasyon ngayon ay makukumpleto investigasyon, ebidensya. At saka yung investigasyon ay hindi lang masisentri sa dalawang issue, kundi malawakan.
Meanwhile, Senate Health Committee Chairman Bongo said he and President Duterte still believe in the credibility of General Ricardo Morales as PhilHealth Director. But Go said heads will roll once corruption is proven during the probe.
Meron pong napatunayan na merong katiwalian. Kung may kinalaman siya, I'm sure sisibakin siya. So, dapat po mapatunayan na meron talaga. Sa ngayon, meron pong tiwala si Pangulong Duterte kay General Morales.
Soto thinks it is still difficult to gauge whether the irregularities go as far up as General Morales. In today's session, Go also said Health Secretary Francisco Duque still enjoys the President's trust despite wide criticism on the Health Department's COVID-19 response.
Mahirap pong magpalit ng kapitan po sa gitna ng gerang ito. Kaya po pinatulungan na niya sa mga former military generals. Ito po yung mga tatlong membro po ng gabinete, Secretary Lorenzana, Secretary Anyon, Secretary Galvez, para tulungan. Kasi gera po ito. Hindi po kakayanin ni Secretary Duque. Kahit sino pong Secretary of Health po ay hindi kakayanin itong labang itong mag-isa.
Bok, Cheryl, Senate President Soto said that the inquiry might start this week. Earliest would be Friday, but should there be any conflict in scheduling and giving out of invitations, then they could start the inquiry next week, Monday, August 3. Bok, Cheryl?
Okay, man. Well, of course, investigations are part of the Senate's mandate, but their primary mandate still is legislation. Now, as far as legislation is concerned, pag-usapan na, I suppose, yung priority legislation ng Senado na kailangang balangkasin. Kasi, for example, aside from the budget, may ibang pending sa Senado, yung Arise Bill at yung Trabaho Bill, among others.
Correct, Bok. Uunahin, of course, priority agenda dyan. Yung tomorrow, they will pass on third and final reading the Bayanihan to Recover as one bill. And then the Arise, Sitira, And then, of course, kanina nabanggit na rin ni Senate President Soto, they will also come up with laws about strengthening digital highway and about public transportation. Maraming batas yung binanggit kanina ni Senate President Soto. But, of course, they can discuss these bills on committee and plenary level while having these investigations as well. Of course, may I also add, Bok, that aside from the PhilHealth controversy, we also have one big hearing which will be which will be led by the Senate Buribon Committee, which is about the deaths in the National Libid Prison or NBP, Bok, Cheryl.
Thank you. That was Mayan Los Baños reporting live from Pasay City.
Yung right bill book, that's a big measure. That's 1.3 billion for economic growth of the country. 1.3 billion. I'm sorry, trillion.
1.3 trillion.
Yeah. So, hindi lang siya rice. Extra rice yan.
Baka rice ang ibang rice ang maisip ng mga kababayan natin.
Only rice.
Pero the thing with that is medyo may problema sila, 'di ba? Dahil hindi sila nagkakasundo ng House pagdating sa Senate din, yung laki ng budget na kakailanganin with that rice.
Yeah, but then they have the BICAM naman to iron things out there. Okay. Now, how different will this year's SONA be? We discussed that with political strategist and of course, siya rin ang Pangulo ng Universidad de Manila, si Malu Tikia. And also joining us is Political Science Professor Alfred Sureta. Good afternoon, Malu and Professor Alfred.
Magandang hapon po.
Magandang hapon po.
Ayan, Professor...
That's Professor Alfred. Is Mamalu already online?
Kanina, we were checking on her.
Mamalu.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes,
everyone.
Hi.
Magandang hapon sa inyo.
Good
Thank
afternoon.
you for joining us.
Of course, we expect the President to hopefully start in half an hour. But fearless forecast, what do we expect the President... Well, of course, we expect them to talk about the roadmap. Pero anong direction tingin niyo na gustong punta ng Pangulo as far as the roadmap is concerned?
Sa akin, Bok, ang klarado doon, kailangan very clear yung roadmap for recovery. Dapat hindi maging choice between public health and the economy.
Okay.
Dapat i-address niya yung agam-agam ng tao kasi may anxiety factor at saka yung safety. Hindi lumalabas ang mga tao, hindi nagpunta sa mall, natatandaan natin ang ating ekonomiya ay consumer-led. So kung hindi yan iikot ang ekonomiya natin, magkakaroon tayo ng problema kasi almost 60% ng ating ekonomiya ay small and medium scale entrepreneurs yan.
So pagtitimbang yan dun sa dalawa, whether yung pagtitimbang ng economy versus
dapat yung
health.
pagtitimbang napakaklarado, wala kang papanigan na isa. Dun sa survey namin during the peak ng COVID, ayaw ng tao yung relief to big business. So paano siguro dapat klarado yung pinupunto ng Pangulo at dapat siguro meron tayong timeline na nakikita kasi dun sa nangyayari sa atin ngayon sa COVID parang loss in translation sa implementation at from the side of the local government parang meron kayong standard pero anong ayuda sa local government? Meron kayong minamandohan na executive order pero wala namang budget na kasama. So, yung mga ganun, napakalaking bagay kasi kailangang maayos yung planchado, yung national to local. Kasi ang local talaga ang papatakbo nito Napakahirap. Nakita natin na napakahirap para sa national, lalo na pagdating sa datos. Mali-mali yung datos na lumalabas, kailangan linisin, and that causes a lot of misinformation along the way.
Naglo-localized quarantine sa tayo.
That's true. Professor Sureta, kayo po, ano po ang inaasahan natin? Ano po yung mga tingin nyo dapat marinig natin na lamanin ng SONA po ng Pangulo?
Dagdag ko lang sa sinabi din ni Ma'am Malu kanina na yung palagi ko yung isang bagay na talagang hihintay ng taong bayan ay yung hindi lang yung more than ayuda, yung kung paano gagastusin yung mga napautang ng iba't ibang bansa at mga development agency sa atin na umaabot ng mga around 400 to 500 billion pesos yata. At the same time, paano pamumunuan ng Estado ang isang sitwasyon kung saan hindi pa nangyari sa ating modernong kasaysayan, kung saan majority ng aid at expenses at expenditure ay talagang manggagaling sa Estado. Kasi kahit anong disaster na naalala natin sa recent memory na ngayon na nagkaroon ng sabay-sabay na tama sa OFW sector, sa retail sector, sa transportation sector, sa lahat ng sektor ng ating ekonomiya, pati agrikultura. Kaya lahat ng sektor ngayon ay nakaabang at hinihintay ano bang magiging direksyon. Pero sa palagay ko rin naman, nakita na natin itong ibang mga direksyon na to sa mga ilang announcement ng ating mga ahensya at kung maaari na sabihin na may mga pagkukulang din ng ating mga national government agency, na-adjust din naman kahit papalo. Pero totoo, itong SONA yung magseset ng tono at direksyon sa susunod na gagawin ng gobyerno sa mga darating na buwan, lalo na critical itong approaching na second semester, pagsisimula ng klase, kung magsisimula nga ba, yung pagre-reopen ng economy, pagbalik na libo-libong OFW at kung ano-ano pa.
Well, matanong ko rin po kayong dalawa. Kasi napag-usapan natin kanina yung kailangan ng pagtitimbang at pagbabalanse. Pero baka kailangan din ng pagbabalanse at pagtitimbang doon sa aspeto ng yung ayuda sa ekonomiya. Whether or how much assistance you spend for individuals or families versus how much you spend for helping businessmen. Kasi for example, some congressmen were talking about negative interest loans for businessmen. So ano yun it's a matter of priorities I suppose sino mas bibigyan mo ng timbang doon sa paggastos? Paano ho yun sa inyong pananaw?
Sa aking pananaw, Bok, napakahalaga na ang ayuda nasa tao. Kasi kung hindi mo, yung negosyo can take care, big business can take care of themselves. That's one. Yes, I think everyone should consider that we will end this year in the red. Yung nag-aasam pa na may kita, sa tingin ko, kailangan yung tingnan ang ating mga assumptions and estimates kasi definitely there will be no business that will end on black. Lahat tayo, we're trying to minimize. Kung makapag-break even, okay yun. Kaya sa aking palagay, napakahalaga dun sa tao kasi kung tingnan mo, binuksan ng ekonomiya 30%. Pero ang tao hindi lumalabas. So, kailan lalabas ang tao? Lalabas lamang ang tao kung sigurado sila yung agam-agam na hindi ako magko-contract ng COVID at kung ako'y mag-contract, mapupuntahan ko ang isang ahensya ng pamahalaan na libre ang aking pag-check. Kasi nakikita natin yung una, kaya nagulat kami sa Maynila, nung in-offer yung volunteer. Kung sino gusto magpa-check. Iniiba namin yung equation, hindi na namin sinasabing mass testing. Ba't mag-volunteer ka kung gusto mo may libreng gano'n na ayuda? Sa tingin ko, mas maganda yung ayuda na in the form of testing rather than yung nangyari sa SAP, yung Social Amelioration Program. Kung magkakaroon ng national ID, ang hinihintay ko sa Pangulo ay sabihin at diretsuhang sabihin in 30 days, I want that national ID up and running. Kasi kung meron tayo, kahit mo gawing by region NCR, yung malalaki, 3, 4A, Cebu.
Yeah, Cebu.
May ID ka, makokontrol mo, malalaman mo kung talagang pumupunta yung ayuda ng gobyerno dun sa tamang tao. Kasi hindi naman tayo mayamang bansa, iilan ang ating pondo, nasasayangan ako dun sa gustong tumulong pero bumabagsak sa maling kamay. Nasasayangan rin ako na bumibili ng equipment pero pag bumili ang local, mas mura kami kaysa doon sa national. Dapat yun, siguro kung meron kang 3%, 5% margin, okay na yun kasi ang binibiling equipment para sa level of safetyness and lessen anxiety of people. Kaya mag-iiba talaga ang mga pananaw ng negosyante. Kaya lumalabas yung issue ng corruption kasi kuminsan napakataas talaga ng
Yung margin.
presyo ng equipment.
Ma'am maliban po doon and Professor Soreta, doon po sa ayuda na sinasabi nyo na sana wag muna tayo doon sa SAPE. Pero isa din sa malaking tama ay pagdating sa employment natin. Yung unemployment rate really went up by 17.7%. You think this is something na dapat din i-address ng Pangulo dito po sa susunod niyang SONA?
Palagay ko, Ma'am Cheryl, ito yung isang bagay na talagang may pinakamalaking factor kung paano re-responde yan dahil dalawang bagay ito eh. Una, hindi ito kayang i-absorb lahat ng consumption ng Estado kung magbibigay ba ng bagong oportunidad yung gobyerno sa pamamagitan ng pag-implementa ng mga bagong programa. Kasi sa katotohanan, domestic unemployment pala pinag-uusapan natin dito, hindi pa pinag-uusapan ng employment ng mga galing sa OFW na wala naman talagang kahit sino na nag-envision ng mangyayari yan. At sa mga huling estimate, 1,000 pa yung mga papauwiin natin. At yan ay i-accommodate. So, yung aid talaga will not only come in form of dapat na yung aid lang para food items. Dapat it must come in terms of institutional support. Kaya nga doon sa mga expectation po sa SONA ay kung paano i-replenish yung pondo ng OWA, paano i-replenish yung pondo ng DTI, ang Department of Agriculture para ituloy yung mga industry support subsidies. Lahat po ng ahensya ngayon ay yung magiging talagang puntahan sa mga sektor nilang maapektuhan. Unang-una na nga po dyan yung mga na-unemployed at kahit paano, meron pong mga datos yung DOLE at DTI sa mga natulungan nila pero talagang kulang po ito talaga yung challenge talaga at sa katotohanan naman, hindi naman po talaga na plano yung budgeting dito. Kahit umutang pa tayo ng umutang, palagay ko hindi kakayanin talaga. Isa tama sa Mamalu po, yung efficient na use ng limited resources po natin. Kung mas efficient, kung i-decentralize ang purchasing na matagal na po natin tinutulak po talaga, may baba na po yung mga bagay, ibigay na sa local, ilan po sa local na lang po talaga. Ito hindi, kahit ano po sa palagay ko, ano ba plano? Meron po talagang mga sektor na madi-disappoint kasi hindi po talaga kaya i-solve lahat, captured lahat yung solution. So ito yung limit din. Yung SONA will provide the direction pero I think dapat din ang pakiramdam ko, maging realistic din yung assumption ng ating pamahalaan. Para yung mga tao din, hindi naman din umasa na sa lahat mga galing sa Estado, kagaya yung mga nangyayari ngayon sa mga aid program natin.
Mamalu?
Cheryl, ako, sinususugan ko yung panukala ni Congressman Joey Salceda, ang tawag doon basic income. Matagal na namin pinupush yan. Ang basic income, ang productive na Pilipino, magkaroon ng monthly basic income para hindi sila nagwo-worry yung panggastos araw-araw, hindi sila maging entrepreneur. Mahirap nating asahan ang pagbalik ng ekonomiya sa traditional na pamamaraan. Napakahalaga na dapat bawat isa sa atin will do our share. Kasi yung tinatawag kasi sa economics market failure, talaga may failure ngayon. Nakita ko dyan si Tonton. Talaga may market failure ngayon, kailangan ng government intervention. Pero anong klase anong uri ng government intervention? Saan? Hindi mo kakayaning 100%. Mamimili ka lang. And the rest, it has to be really ang bawat Pilipino magtutulong-tulong tayo. Kita natin, we are a very resilient country.
Yes.
Ang daming bagyo, ang daming unos, pero bumabangon. Sabi nga ng mga ibang dayuhan dyan, ba't kayo nakangiti? Hirap na hirap kayo dyan, pero nakangiti kayo. So makikita mo na kakayanin, huwag lang lukuhin. Lalo na yung allocation ng pondo.
Mamalu, teka, bago kayo, before you move on something else, yung concept ng basic income is unfamiliar to a lot of Filipinos. When you talk about basic income, are you talking about universal basic income? Ibig sabihin, garantisado ng gobyerno ang isang basic income across the board.
Oo, matagal na namin yung pinupush, maganda pa ang ekonomiya noon, nung pinag-uusapan yun, sabi namin, ba't hindi kayo mag-UBI? Natutuwa naman ako at si Congressman Joel Salceda, pinick up yan ngayong COVID, kasi makikita mo saan ayuda sino sa ating ekonomiya ang kailangan ng ganong ayuda. Pag naibigay mo yun kasi, hindi mo nang iisipin saan mo kukunin ang magkain eh. Tapos yung taong, alam mo, ang Pilipino entrepreneurial, makikita natin yan yung shared economy online, yung bartering. Biro mo, marunong ka gumawa ng brownies, i-offer mo, ipupo. Yung makikita mo, ang daming Pilipino ngayon nagluluto at binebenta online. Bakit? Kasi alam nila kulang ang kanilang kita. So sa basic income, kung yan ay 15,000, hindi sa lahat, doon lang sa productive people, especially those who are, CDE, magagabayan natin. Kasi hindi na nila aalalahanin saan kukunin ang pambayad ng aking mga utilities, ng aking pagkain. Tapos, kung matipid pa ako, pwede ako maging entrepreneurial. So, makikita mo yung natutuwa ako kasi tumaas ang online activities sa selling and bartering of goods. Sa tingin ko, magandang signos yun. Ang problema lang talaga natin is yung connectivity natin. Kaya kung sabihin, ang gusto kong marinig kay Presidente, in 30 days, gusto ko ayusin yung connectivity. Pag ganong mando, matutuwa ka kasi in 30 days may ID ka, in 30 days maayos ang connectivity. Kahit yung key areas lang, makikita mo kaagad yung magiging recovery. Hanggat tayo naghihintay, mabagal ang ating recovery. Pero ako nag-a-admit ako sa sinabi ni Fred na yes, there's a market failure now and to be there, to lead, to be the catalyst, okay? Not to be the answer. Because we don't want government going over bounds. We want the private sector and we want Filipinos to help in building this nation.
Ma'am Malu and Professor Soreta, pasensya na po, gipit na po tayo sa oras. Just 14 minutes ay magsisimula na ang 5th SONA ng Pangulo. Thank you for joining us today.
Salamat po.
Universidad
Thank you
de
din po.
Manila, President Malu Tiquia and Political Science Professor Alfred Soreta.
Kasi malaki ang kontribusyon ni Yeng sa online sales kasi lahat na makitang pagkain sa Facebook ay binibili.
Uy, nakikinabang ka ha, dahil taga-TIM kasama si Edjan sa Tuwitikim.
Okay, we're pausing for a quick break. Our special coverage of the President's Fifth State of the Nation address. We'll be right back. Keep it here in One News. Special coverage of the President's Fifth State of the Nation address. Now, hours ahead of the President's State of the Nation address, the House of Representatives opened its second regular session of the 18th Congress.
The lower chamber said it will prioritize the passage of the 2021 national budget and the roadmap for the COVID-19 recovery. To give us more details, we have Ria Fernandez reporting to us live from Batasan Pambansa or near Batasan Pambansa. Ria? Are you there, Ria? Okay. So
She's probably outside.
Outside.
Just to be realistic about things, she's probably outside kasi just about everybody's outside. You have only 50 people allowed inside.
And again, what they're saying, they're going to push through with Plan A.
Yes, and Plan A is the President going to the Batasan himself.
Minus
instead
7
of-
people.
Yeah, instead of just doing it from the Rizal Hall of Malacanang Palace, which was a plan kung sakaling may magpositibo doon sa mga dadro dapat today. At yun nga.
Okay, Ria is there. Ria?
Yes, Cheryl, during the House's second regular session, The lower chamber aims to pass measures concerning livelihood as the country continues to grapple with COVID-19.
As the House of Representatives opened a new session, House Speaker Alan Cayetano laid down their roadmap against COVID-19. In his speech, Cayetano noted how the health crisis has exposed the government's vulnerability. Nevertheless, he said they have to move forward to address the impacts of the pandemic.
Everything from this point on should no longer be about recapturing the past. Huwag na po nating habulin yung kahapon. But we have to acknowledge in humility our mistakes, surviving the present and building a greater future.
But Cayetano said they need the public's help.
Let us not delude ourselves with the thought that Congress is primus inter pares or the first among equals. No, I am here to tell you that if we, members of their House, who must rise to the occasion and fulfill the mandate that the people have entrusted to us.
The House Speaker further highlighted the potential of agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing sectors, as well as the returning overseas Filipino workers in helping revive the economy.
These returning OFWs will form the first wave of our offensive in the countryside. Armed with technology, training, and discipline, they have so much knowledge, they have learned so much from other countries. They have the ability to transform our economy practically overnight.
The House leader also eyes developing the countryside to decongest the urban areas. Moreover, he's keen on reviving the creative industry in the Philippines.
This week, the House leadership and anyone who would like to join us will be filing a bill that will establish the Department of Arts and Culture so that instead of being a casualty of COVID-19, Filipino creativity and artistry will be an integral part of our arsenal for recovery. And we will be targeting Asia and not just the Philippines. And when we say
Bok Cheryl, during the morning session, the House along with the Senate passed and adopted a concurrent resolution to hold a joint session later at 4 p.m. for the President's SONA. Speaker Alan Cayetano in his previous interview said that he wants to hear from the President their accomplishments and direction for his remaining years in office. Bok Cheryl.
Thank you, Ria Fernandez. Ahead of President Rodrigo Duterte's fifth SONA, a Holy Mass was held at the Quiapo Church. For the details, let's bring in JC Cosico live from Manila City. JC.
Bok Cheryl, the Archdiocese of Manila held a Mass earlier today here at the Quiapo Church ahead of President Duterte's fifth SONA. The Mass with the theme Panalangin ng Sambayanan para sa katarungan at kapayapaan started past 12 noon. Strict health protocols were observed. Guests underwent the regular disinfection and thermal scanning upon entering the premises. Markers were also placed on the floor and seats to ensure physical distancing. Only 100 individuals were allowed inside the church. Monsignor Fernando Coronel read the written homily of Manila Auxiliary Bishop Rodrigo, who recently tested positive for COVID-19. Pabilio said the President's SONA should not be an avenue to boast and criticize. Instead, it should give Filipino an answer on the country's real score on several issues like the health crisis, job losses, and the new learning setup. He also urged the faithful to be more circumspect on officials and not be afraid to speak out about relevant issues. The Mass was attended by some government officials, including Senator Risa on to say.
Dinig din natin ang silang pagtanaw ng kakamali at pagkukulang at paghingi ng paumanhin sa ating mga kababayan. Doon sa kabagalan na hanggang sa ngayon hindi kompletong pagsasagawa ng mass testing.
Bok Cheryl, the Manila Police District confiscated protest materials against the anti-terror law from a church-goer inside the church. Back to you.
Thank you, JC Cosico, reporting live from Manila City.
Militant group staged what they called So Nagkaisa at UP Diliman earlier today. To tell us more about how it went, Greg Gregorio reports to us live from UP Diliman. Greg, kamusta ang mga protesta kaninang umaga? Well, Greg's getting ready. Mukhang sumabit siya dun sa protesta. Hindi naman. Oh, yeah. I
Hindi.
think Greg's already here. Greg, can you hear us? Greg, can you hear us?
I think we're
having a bit of technical problems there.
maybe because of the rain.
Yeah. Kaninang umaga, the protesters held their rally doon sa may University Avenue sa UP Diliman. And I think they were allowed to conduct their rally
Until 12 noon.
yeah,
That's from
unmolested
10 to 12.
by the police. Kasi there was an earlier order by the police not to have them have their rally doon sa, as earlier planned, doon sa Commonwealth area.
Sa harap ng
CHR.
Commission on Human Rights, yes. So
That was based on the IATF resolution na bawal ang 10 or more sa public gatherings sa IATF resolution number 57, if I remember correctly. So in place of that, they just had it in UP. Diliman.
And they were saying at least 10 groups ang sumali doon sa rally. And it was bigger than the Grand Mañanita. That was...
Baka we can show some video if Greg's not ready.
Ayan.
We can show some video
And
instead.
I think meron pang ibang activities this afternoon. May concert pa rin yata or other activities, viewing. Nandun pa rin sila around that area. Pero yung protest itself, exactly 12 noon ay natapos na yan.
And from my understanding is that hanggang ngayon meron pa ring riot police station along Commonwealth Avenue just in case na may sumipot ng mga realista. Because sometimes that happen. And traditionally, may nagrally talaga sa Commonwealth Avenue pag-araw ng SONA, sino man ang Pangulo.
Pero this time, kita naman natin, talagang sinunod nila. No? Nanatili lamang sila sa UP area. And you were saying na hindi pwede kasi maraming ang nagtatanong, di ba? Kanina na pag-usapan natin yung umaga na bakit sa loob ng UPI pwede.
Pinapayagan. Because there was an agreement signed between the Ministry of National Defense nung panahon pa ni Juan Ponce Enrile and the UP administration. Although, of course, it is not set in stone. It is not cast in stone. It's only an agreement. I'm not sure if it's a memorandum of understanding. They generally try to respect that. Hindi pwedeng pumasok yung police and military doon sa UP without UP's permission, the UP admin's permission. So in that sense, UP retains its autonomy from the national police. Okay? And we go toss it back to Greg, who now joins us on the line. No, he's live now. Greg, can you hear us?
Yes, Ed, Cheryl, I can hear you.
Sige, Bok, anong balita dyan?
Yes, Ed, Cheryl, this morning, SONA Kaisa rally, which was held here at the University Avenue inside the UP Diliman campus, strictly followed its 2-hour program. And the rally stayed inside the campus, like the past Sunday rallies, which occupied Commonwealth Avenue.
Hours before the 10 a.m. program, members of the Makabayan bloc joined some protesters as they marched towards University Avenue at the University of the Philippines in Diliman. Others were waiting near the Quezon Memorial Circle. No less than 10 groups participated in the SONA Kaisa. This include Bayan, Sanmukas, Karapatan, and some key individuals like human rights lawyer Chel Jokno and known activist Wanna Change. Organizers don't have an exact headcount yet. Bayan Secretary General Renato Reyes said this is bigger than the Grand Mañanita last month.
Napatunayan natin as far as health protocols are concerned, mas maganda yung ginawa ng mga organizers dito kaysa sa ginawa ng organizers doon sa Rizal Coliseum nung mga nakaraang araw.
During the program, Wanna Change made a parody of Palace spokesperson Harry Roque's now viral photo with the dolphins.
Siya rin yung nahuhuli natin na hindi sumusunod sa sariling mga pina-implement niya.
Recall that days before the SONA, the Interior Department reiterated the strict implementation of the memorandum banning mass gatherings during the pandemic. This comes days after a gentleman's agreement between authorities and protesters was reached for an orderly conduct of protests during the SONA. For Attorney Chel Jokno, nothing supersedes citizens' right to freedom of expression as granted by the Constitution. Constitution. He explained that people with comorbidities were discouraged from joining.
Parang araw-araw na lang ay nawawala siya o lumiliit yung democratic space. Kaya sabi nga nila, yung demokrasya pinaglalaban yan eh.
NCRPO Chief Daboltina said they came to an agreement that rallies have to stay inside UP. Otherwise, protesters caught rallying along Commonwealth Avenue may face possible arrest.
Lahat po doon ikukuan yung illegal assembly, di ba? Wala man silang permit, wala man inisyo ang LGU ng Quezon City, walang inisyo. So automatic yan ang kanya pagtapos yung violation sa R 11332 plus yung local ordinance ng palisiya tungkol dyan. So napag-aralan na po at nadidiscuss na namin yan during our planning kung ano pong ikakaso.
Ed Sherrill, right after the program has ended at 12 noon, the protesters left the venue. However, Reyes said while the physical program for the rally has concluded, everyone is still invited to join their online protests, such as Tinig ng Bayan online concert from 3 to 6 p.m. and followed by a noise barrage in various areas from 6 p.m. onwards. Ed Sherrill?
Maraming salamat, Greg Gregorio. Yung nakikita po yung inset, ito po yung live feed ng Batasang Pambansa. Mga 4 minutes ago, thereabouts, lumanding na yung Bell helicopter ng Pangulo coming from Malacanang doon sa helipad ng Batasang Pambansa. And the President has stepped down from the helicopter and has entered the premises of the Batasang Pambansa building. Normally, the President stays at a lounge, not particularly sure which lounge, just before he's introduced by members of the leaders of Congress. And there you see.
And it's exactly 4 o'clock at makikita natin, handa na. Oh, okay. That was fast. Okay.
Mukhang dumiretso ng Pangulo. Sige.
We'll be listening to President Duterte's 5th SONA in a bit. I'm Cheryl Cosim.
And I'm Ed Lingao. We throw you to the Batasang Pambansa. We are One News.
Makapangyarihang Ama.
Makapangyarihang Ama. Makapangyarihang Ama. May gawa ng langit at lupa. Bagamat kayo ang taas sa ngalan, kayo naman ang aming Diyos, ng pusang makabagin, at ang inyong kapaitan ay walang mahal.
Buong pagpapakumbaba kaming lumalapit at humihingi ng inyong kapatawaran sa aming mga pagkakasala sa isa't isa, sa aming pagwawalang bahala, sa kalikasan at sa iba pa ninyong mga nilikha.
Hilumin niyo kami, ang aming mga karagatan at mga kagubatan, marapatin ng muling maging daliwan ng inyong mga biyaya.
Sapagkat kayo ay patuloy na namamayani sa lahat, maging sa salot na aming kinatatakutan.
Tulungan ninyo kami na mahanap ang lunas sa laganap ng pagdurusa. Mangusap sa bawat puso namin, muling ipadama sa amin ang inyong pag-aadya. Patatin ninyo ang mga kumakalinga sa mga may sakit, ang mga patuloy na nangangailangan sa amin, gantipalaan at pagpalain ang mga tumutulong sa nangangailangan, nang sila ay patuloy na magtalima sa inyong pahiwatig. Itinatalaga namin sa inyong patnubay ang aming Pangulo.
Mga namumuno sa pamahalaan at pribadong sektor.
Pagbuklurin kami sa pagharap sa mga hamong darating.
Nang may pag-asa at katatagan ng pananampalataya.
Sa dulot ninyong laya at tagumpay.
Sapagkat kayo ang aming dakila at kaamahangang Panginoon, at ang inyong kaharian ay walang hanggan. Ipinagkatiwala sa inyo ang aming bayan, sa inyong pagmamahal, inihiling ang aming kaligtasan. Siya nawa.
Please remain standing for the singing of the Philippine National Anthem.
Dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit,
Sa tang watawat mo'y tagumpay na naniningin. Ang bituin at araw niyang kanan, pag may di magdidilim, lupa na ang
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable members of Congress, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Kindly. Senate President Vicente Soto III and the honorable members of the Senate, House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano and the honorable members of the House of Representatives, Vice President Maria Leonor Robredo, former Presidents Joseph Ejercito Estrada and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, Chief Justice Diosdado Peralta and the Justices of the Supreme Court, His Excellency Munter Mahfoud Salim Almantre, and the esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, Executive Secretary Salvador Mindaldia, and the members of the Cabinet, mga mahal kong kababayan. We live in a troubled time. A dream of prosperity for our country was suddenly snuffed by a pandemic virulent virus. No nation was spared. Neither rich nor poor were exempt from the onslaught of this deadly disease. But let us not despair. The vaccine is around the corner. Sooner and not later, the virus that gobbled up thousands of lives will itself be laid to rest. In the meantime, let us express the nation's gratitude to those who courageously and willingly put their lives on the line to serve the people and country. We share the griefs of their families, and no amount of tears can compensate their great losses. My countrymen, it is sad that while government focuses its attention resources to battle the coronavirus, there are those who take advantage of a preoccupied government. One of them is Senator Frank Dillon. In an interview, he arrogantly mentioned, among others, that oligarchs need not be rich. Then he linked the anti-dynasty system with oligarchy, and the topic was my daughter and son. This happened after the Committee of Franchise voted 70-11 to deny the grant of franchise to ABS-CBN. Obviously, he was defending the Lopezes, that they are not oligarchs. Great wealth enable economic elites and corporations to influence public policy to their advantage. Media is a powerful tool in the hands of oligarchs like the Lopezes, who use their media outlets in their battles with political figures. I am a casualty of the Lopezes during the 2016 election. The dealers and purveyors of illegal drugs, hiding in the shadow of COVID-19, have stepped up their activities. The amount of shabu valued at millions of pesos seized during police operations speak volumes of the enormity and the weight of the problem that we bear. The corrupt, the grafters, and the influence peddlers also take advantage of their fear and confusion that coronavirus generates the financial and material assistance of government to the unemployed, the sick and the destitute, running into billions of pesos, are not spared from corruption and ineptitude. Even the donations for well-meaning private persons are schemed before reaching their intended beneficiaries. It is like snatching food from the mouths of the babes. The profiteers, overpricers, and the corrupt felons must be laughing while they stash their dirty monies, but not for long. They cannot outrun the long arm of the law. In these regards, the words of former President Ramon Magsaysay ring fresh and relevant today as the day they were said decades ago. He said, "We need men of integrity and faith like Rizal and Del Pilar, men of action like Bonifacio, men of inflexible patriotism like Mabini. We need their zeal, their self-reliance, and their capacity to work, their devotion to service, and their ability to lose themselves in the common cause of building a nation. If we allow greed and self-interest and ambition to rule us, then, as stated by one prominent physician, we will be left with nothing better than the lesser evil instead of the greater good. In my inaugural address 4 years ago, I said that no leader can succeed at anything of national importance without significance unless he has the cooperation and support of the people he is tasked to lead and sworn to serve. The efforts and resources which we poured out produced the momentum needed to bring our country closer to our goals. Suffice it to say, we made significant strides over time. Over 4.3 million poor families benefited from the Pantawid Pamilya. Over 92.2 million beneficiaries received subsidies under the unconditional cash transfer program. We also made available tertiary education and universal health care. Public utility drivers were given assistance to the Pantawid Pasada program. There are complaints that some drivers did not receive any assistance at all. I have directed the SWD and DILG to look into this. I welcome the passage of the law postponing the barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections. The postponement saved much-needed government funds and ensure the implementation of projects under the current barangay officials. In the hindsight, it also saved us from holding the polls while we dealt and continue to deal with the pandemic. The Malasakit Centers Act has proven to be a great help to our less fortunate citizens needing medical services through one-stop platform in government hospitals. We commend the initiative and work of Senator Bongo in this regard, as well as other significant pieces of legislation as of today. There are 75 Malasakit centers serving Filipinos all over the country. These centers will be of great help in ensuring that our people remain healthy and resilient during these challenging times. The salary and standardization law of 2019 increases the salaries of civilian government workers. I hope that this law will inspire our government workers to perform better and encourage young, brilliant citizens to join public service. I appreciate the law of establishing the National Academy of Sports. We can now give our deserving student athletes the training and the support they need to excel in their chosen field of endeavors. With the commitment of key members of Congress, the Executive Department, the FISGOC, or the Philippine Sports Commission, and the Philippine Olympic Committee, we're bound together with one vision to host the 30th Southeast Asian Games. Our athletes prevailed. More than that, we fostered pride, patriotism, genuine sportsmanship, and camaraderie in our South Asian brothers and sisters. Indeed, we won as one. To our business community and the general public, we assure you that the landmark ease of doing business and efficient government service delivery act has been gaining momentum. We are closer to eliminating over-regulation in government services. Frontline processes, including consular services, processing of building and business permits, and the services of overseas Filipinos and seafarers were streamlined. Passports and driver's license validity were lessened to ease the burden of the public. We received a BBB plus credit rating despite ASEAN credit rating downgrades and negative outlook revisions in the worldwide. The Japan Credit Rating Agency upgraded us from BBB plus to A minus last month. Meanwhile, Moody's has affirmed and maintained the country's ratings at Baa2 rather. To understand, because with the light I have mine eyesight is not as good as new. Our fiscal position is strong, our economic fiscal management prudent, and our banking system robust. we are in a better position to weather the crisis caused by COVID-19 global pandemic. We have accomplished significant infrastructure projects under the Build program. I will not dwell lengthily on the nitty-gritty of our infrastructure accomplishments. Now, lest I bore you. Instead, we will release a comprehensive written report of our collective milestones and the details of accomplishments that remind us that perseverance, patience, determination will help us move forward even in the most difficult times. We issued last year the Executive Order number 100, establishing the Diversity and Inclusion Program as national program of the government. We want to end discrimination of persons on the basis of age, disability, ethnicities, sexual orientation, and gender identity and expression, and other character traits. My administration always believed that freedom from illegal drugs, terrorism, corruption, and criminality is itself a human right violation. Part of our efforts to uphold human rights is protection of the rights of children and the right against discrimination. Early last year, I signed Executive Order number 92, creating the National Council Against Child Labor. Government efforts to protect the rights of children will be amplified to prevent, reduce, and eliminate any form of child labor. Our achievements along this line will have been extolled by an overwhelming number of fellow member states in the UN Human Rights Council during its recently held 44th session last June. Rest assured that we will not dodge our obligation to fight for human rights. My countrymen, there are lessons to be learned from the coronavirus pandemic. It jolted us to realize that gains made after spending so much planning, effort, cost, and time could diminish considerably and quickly for reasons beyond one's anticipation. That it is much easier to destroy than build. That in a crisis of national proportion that affects every aspect of human life, government needs to have the support and cooperation of the people if it is to succeed in battling the cause of that crisis. That there are people who ask for compassion but show none themselves. That life, after all, is fickle, like the weather. The gains we achieved for the first 3.5 years were put to a test when the pandemic suddenly struck the global community. While I am aware that the road towards a comfortable life would all be far easy if pandemic had not occurred, and around the rest of the world we suffered. The global scale and socio-economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been unprecedented. Yet, in the throes of its global health emergency, we have been able to withstand the headwinds generated by this coronavirus. In this regard, I would like to express my gratitude to all those who made possible the steady supply of food, water, basic utilities of our households. And the provisions of basic social services and financial assistance to our people. Our profound gratitude goes to everyone who helped keep our country's food supply chain running. The valiant soldiers, policemen, and security guards who kept peace and order in our community. The dedicated personnel who kept our essential establishment operational. You showed us kindness and selflessness. You gave us strength. You risked your own lives to serve the greater good in keeping the Filipino spirit of bayanihan. I also thank the men and women of the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Diseases and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 for all the countless hours it spent to keep the pandemic in check and for all the efforts it made to ensure the safety of our people. Let me also recognize the efforts of the local government units that step up and initiated their own response measures to contain effects of COVID-19 and its impact to their constituents have been impact to its constituents. The shadow says it's a period there. I know exactly the difficulties you are undergoing. I pray that the officials of each LGU in our country, from the barangay to the autonomous regions, would set aside partisan politics and selfish interests to do what is right and good for all. Likewise, I likewise issued Executive Order Number 104, which imposed ceilings on retail prices of at least 133 drugs and medicines and directed a continuous review of the retail prices of others. This proved to be providential now that we are facing a pandemic. To everyone who helped us in this time of great need, maraming salamat po. Let me say that the strength of a nation rests in the hands of the people acting as one with government. In the pursuit of common goals and objectives, when the pandemic struck, I decided to prioritize life over other considerations according to experts. The intervention that the government had put in place prevented as much as 1.3 to 3.5 million infections. To me, even if the numbers were much lower, it would still be and would have been worth the sacrifice we made. Buhay muna bago lahat. We initially encountered difficulties ramping up our testing capacity. We now have 93 accredited testing laboratories nationwide, and we are aiming to conduct 1.4 million tests by end of July and ensure a quick turnaround time of 48 to 72 hours. Under the Social Amelioration Program, we allotted 2.5 billion or to 2.5 billion for poor and low-income households who were affected during this pandemic, who thrive on a no work, no pay arrangement. Admittedly, our implementation of the Social Amelioration Program was not perfect, and some opportunists turned crisis into opportunity. We will catch up with you sooner than you think. We came up with the COVID-19 Adjustment Measures Program, extended financial assistance to over 650,000 affected individuals in the formal sector, 110 OFWs abroad, and almost 83,000 repatriated OFWs were also provided temporary wage employment to displace marginal workers through the TUPAD project. Our indigent senior citizens were provided with a stipend for the rest of the semester of the year, current year. This health emergency stretched government's resources to its limits. In response to the Office of the President, worked closely with Congress for the quick passage of the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. May I again reiterate my thanks to you, the men and women of Congress, for the effort you invested in passing that law. I hope that we can get some or the same treatment of clarity, purpose, and the fastness to support the passage of the Bayanihan Recover to Act as One, which is supplement funds for recovery and response against the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. We must facilitate the country's economic recovery. I call on Congress to fast-track the passage of the proposed measure, such as the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives Enterprises or CREATE Act. This immediately cuts the corporate income levy from the current 30 to 25% and give government flexibility to grant a combination of fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, among others. The Financial Institutions Strategic Transfer, or First Act, will set up mechanisms allowing banks and other financial institutions to dispose of and transfer non-performing assets and loans to asset management companies similar to the special purpose vehicles. Our economic managers have seen infrastructure investment as an effective tool to help spur high growth, attract investments, create jobs, and achieve financial inclusion for all Filipinos. The DBP has resumed the construction of the North Luzon Expressway Harbor Link, the NLEX-SLEX connector, the Cavite-Laguna Expressway, the Metro Manila Skyway Stage 3, the R1 Bridge Project, the Tarlac-Pangasinan-La Union Expressway Project, and the Subic-Report Expressway Project, to name a few. To realize the maximum benefit from the country's investments, the infrastructure projects are the Build, Build, Build program, which are labor and capital intensive are not mere springboard to the country's swift recovery pandemic. They are economic benefits to be distributed to all corners of the country and push sustainable stability in the urban centers, particularly Manila. The TESTA launched online mode of livelihood and skills training. There are 71 free online training to help upskill trainees for the right opportunities. I asked TESDA to come up with special training programs to retool our OFWs so they can find employment opportunities here and at home. I am also calling on the CHED for scholarship programs for the qualified dependents of our OFW. I direct the Department of Agriculture and DTI to come up with the agribusiness and entrepreneurship projects to help displaced OFWs rebuild their livelihood. Further, I ask the Land Bank and other government financial institutions to continue providing low-interest loans to our OFW. Sa mga kababayan ko na naghihirap sa ibang bansa, nandito na ang inyong gobyerno para matulungan kayo at inyong mga pamilya, lalo na sa panahong ito. The government will intensify its efforts to help businesses, especially micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, by providing responsive government assistance and services capitalization and business operation support as we adapt to the next normal. Nananawagan po ako sa ating mga lessors. Nananawagan po ako sa ating mga lessors. Malasakit at bayanihan po ang sana ang pairalin natin ngayon. This is not the time to drive away leases. During normal times, they were the primary source of your income stream. Now, it's time to be fair and compassionate. Come up with an amenable arrangement with your tenants. Huwag po natin silang pagtabuyan, tanggalin ang tubig, kuryente at bubong. Commercial establishments are requested to give grace periods to allow deferment of payments, especially for MSMEs that were forced to close down during the quarantine period. Let us help them recover. We pump prime the recovery and rehabilitation of the MSMEs. The DTI to the Small Business Corporation set up the Philippine 1 billion with assistance to restart enterprises or CARES program to provide zero-interest loans for MSMEs affected by the pandemic as of July 10, 2020. Over 2,600 loans applications worth more than 182.5 million have been approved. We are optimistic that this initiative will help our MSMEs stabilize and recover from their losses. I also enjoin the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and the banks operating in the country to provide regulatory relief for our MSMEs and allow loan payment extension without incurring penalties and charges. We need your help to prevent the collapse of companies saddled with accumulated amortization and payables caused by closure of their businesses at the height of the strict quarantine periods. As we embark on this effort towards inclusive recovery, we should acknowledge that all forms of government support will go to naught if the new MSMEs do not thrive because of lack of consumer support. Ito ang panahon para suportahan natin ang ating mga kababayan na nagnegosyo at gumawa ng mga produktong sariling atin. In the same manner, in tourism and recreation industries, which are among the hardest hit by the pandemic, count on our full support while we slowly try to put the fun back in your local travels. The national government agencies and LGUs must harmonize their policies to boost tourism, ensuring everyone's well-being. We enjoin our people to help boost the economy by traveling locally. Local na lang. Once the necessary system are in place. The DOST offers its enterprise technology upgrading program to enable businesses to access training that will help them transition to online and contactless operation. Now more than ever, we need to protect our consumers. I direct the Department of Trade and Industry to ensure the empowerment of Filipinos on consumer rights and coordinate strategies between public and private organizations in building a fair, safe, resilient, and sustainable economy. There are welcome developments for commerce and industry, but major economic activities take place in borderless environment with the meager regulatory controls. They expose consumers to various risks related to security, data, privacy, and misrepresentation. We must patrol the country's cyberspace and enforce online consumer and data protection and privacy laws. We must run after online scammers and those undermining the people's trust on the online transactions. We must continue to protect Filipinos the normal and remind the world that we are responsible stewards of data. I am committed to protect both physical and digital lives of our law-abiding countrymen. The national government shall lead the way in our transition to online systems. I reiterate my call for all government instrumentalities to implement systems that shall make physical queuing a thing of the past. Panahon na para mawala na ang pila para mapagsilbihan ang gobyerno nang walang kahirapan para sa tao. The DILG, DBM, and the ARTA, along with all agencies and instrumentalities of government, are hereby directed to make full possible services available online. We need to adjust and adapt a paperless type of business and work performance. We need e-governance. E-governance are people with the services they need and the comfort of their homes in the workplaces. It will enable us bureaucracy to better transition into the new normal and cut red and minimize red tape. Until the COVID-19 vaccine is available, I will not allow the traditional face-to-face teaching or learning unless the risk of exposure to the sickness are eliminated. I cannot and will not put to rest the health and lives of our students and teachers. About 2 weeks ago, I seem to have said that I would allow the face-to-face classes to resume. But we were talking actually of January, because my thinking is that by September, we would have the vaccine. How to get it from the producers or from other governments is really something which we have to deal with, because everyone, it's a global need, and everyone will go for it. But let me just mention it in passing that about 4 days ago, I made a plea to President Xi Jinping that if they have the vaccine, can they allow us to be one of the first, or if it's needed, if we have to buy it, that we will be granted credit so that we can normalize as fast as possible. Life that is lost is lost forever. Courses that are not substantial can be supplemented. Education that is delayed can be recovered. We must implement online learning, modular learning, and TV and radio-based broadcasts, which students coming from different backgrounds can avail. DepEd will provide the printed modules for those who cannot afford online learning. In support of the Learning Continuity Program through blended learning, we plan to increase the number of schools with ICT equipment in the coming months. The DepEd and the DITC are building up the public education network, or PEN, that will connect all public schools and DepEd offices nationwide. We will prioritize the connection of all last-mile schools and those with no electricity supply can have it via satellite and energized via solar panels. By 2022, before I step down, the PEN shall be realized. I'm referring to the program. I will do it. TV frequencies reverted back to government for whatever cause or reason shall not be used exclusively to the exclusion of other persons or other dummies to cope up with the demand of the next normal. This will be used to provide uninterrupted quality education to our children in our shift to e-learning. I am directing Secretary Guevara, Secretary De La Peña, and Secretary Onasan, in collaboration with Secretary Briones and Secretary Abisado, together with Secretary Dominguez, to come up with an integrated program and implementation mechanism to ensure that these TV frequencies are fully utilized by government through the facilities of the PTB4 for the utmost benefit of the Filipino people. Let me just allow me to segue a little bit. For the remaining 2 years of my term, all that is good that belongs to government, whether it be the airwaves, whether it be the lines, or whatever that is good for the people, will belong to the government, and it should be government who should be given the first option to utilize them. Ang sobra kanila. I call on our communication companies to improve their services lest we be forced to take drastic steps to address the less than deal service that the public is getting from you. Alam mo, sisingit na lang ako dito. I am sometimes you are a government pictured to be weak and incompetent because we cannot really force our mandate. Alam mo itong nagbibigay ng mga public services, you better improve. Huwag naman ninyo kaming pahintayin 10 taon bago kami makakamit ng mga services that the other countries are enjoying. If it's just a question of added capitalization or the infusion of money, go and look for it. Maghanap kayo, because if you are not ready to improve, I might just as well close all of you and we revert back to the line telephone. At kukunin ko yan, i-expropriate ko sa gobyerno. Alam mo itong, I'll be straight, smart, pati itong globe, ilang taon na ito? At ang sagot palagi sa akin, the party cannot be rich. Saan pala pumunta yung yawa na yun? Kung ganun lang naman ibigay ninyo sa amin, we are a republic, a sovereign country. Bear that in mind, because the patience of the Filipino people is reaching its limit. At I will be the one to articulate the anger of the Filipino people. And you might not want what I intend to do with you. Kindly improve the services before December. I want to call Jesus Christ to Bethlehem. Better have that line cleared. Alam sa totoo ng ate na po, na ako sa inyo. I have been a citizen of this country and parang nilalaro lang ninyong, kayong may pera. Puta. May pera kayo? Negosyo kayo. Wala kayong pera, putang, umalis kayo dito. You give us half bills, half cooked transactions, lousy service. Tapos ang tao nagbabayad. Tell us now if you cannot really improve on it, because I will work by December. I have 2 years. The next 2 years will be spent improving the telecommunications of this country. Without you, I will find a way. I will talk to Congress and find a way how to do it. Last year, I said that distributing economic business activities is imperative to our country's sustained and equitable growth. Today, I reiterate that statement. I issued Administrative Order Number 18, directing concerned agencies to strengthen the development of special economic zones in areas outside Metro Manila. I also issued Executive Order Number the same, 114, to institutionalize the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program. This consolidates and refocuses existing economic and social welfare programs, activities and projects toward the countryside. It is also an international agency council headed by Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdia, which will create a framework for the effective implementation of the project. Kung hindi ninyo ako naiintindihan sa sinabasa ko, mas lalo ako. In 2021, we aim to increase access to healthcare services by continuously hiring and deploying more than 20,000 health professionals. This will augment health workforce in LGUs, particularly in isolated and disadvantaged areas. We will implement projects to establish and improve barangay health stations, rural health units, and other health care facilities. And we will need to address internal security. We are pursuing a whole-of-the-nation approach to bring peace and order, development in the countryside. We need to provide intervention and implement the barangay development program. This will provide cleared and threatened communities. This refers to a program where the armed forces would play a vital role in the one nation approach. This is what it's meant by this. And that every agency of the government, including the armed forces of the Philippines, should participate. And I am aware of the skirmishes and the assassination of our soldiers. And I said, correct this so that we can proceed with the barangay implementation as fast as possible. We have made significant strides in the past 4 years, but we need the support of local government leaders. We need your help to implement the barangay development program. Certain sectors expressed concern when I declared martial law in Mindanao and its extension 3 times. But 2019 ended without my office requesting any further extension. Martial law in Mindanao ended without abuses by the civilian sector, by the police, by the military. It ended because this time I know that they know how to love the country. I thank Congress for the support to these administration programs. Congress has been very productive, but much more remains to be done. You know, actually, my speech, if we followed it carefully, it's all a plea to Congress to do this, to do that, to make a law or craft a whatever. And this one, I strongly urge Congress to pass a law establishing the Department of Overseas Filipinos, solely on addressing the concerns of Filipinos abroad and their families. I reiterate this swift passage before this. Kawawa kasi itong ating mga overseas. If it's only an office there in the Labor Department, they are overworked or for whatever reason, their needs, their pleas are not really attended to with dispatch and with care. Yung OFW, pati itong ano ngayon, ito yung sinabi ko kanina, I will go for it. We will need it to help them. I reiterate the swift passage of a law reviving the death penalty by lethal injection for crimes specified under the Comprehensive Dangerous Act of 2002. I did not hear so much clapping, so I presume that they are not interested. Wala kang... Someday I'll tell you the story of what happened to the Philippines. Hindi ngayon. But when sabihin ko sa inyo ang totoo, bakit nagaganito yung droga ng Pilipinas? Why the drug syndicates continue to operate just like the countries of Colombia, Mexico, and it is being played inside the national penitentiaries. Para tayong talagang binababoy tayo ng wala. Sabihin ko sa inyo. But this is not a time for storytelling. SONA kasi ito. So dito na. This law will not only help us deter criminality, but also save our children from the dangers posed by the illegal and dangerous drugs. May I be allowed with the indulgence of the body? itong bakit talaga ako galit sa droga. Let us make this a semi-formal speech. Alam mo kasi, 5 pamilya members o 6 or 7, pagka bumagsak yung tatay to drugs, the family crumbles. There's no more home to. Druga, and if he's receiving his salary, nagtatrabaho sa pantalan, 300 a day. Tapos ang shabu is sold at 2. He has about 100 to bring home. Kaya pagka gano'n, nag-aaway-aaway na. Ang mga bata, hindi nakapag-aral. Ang iba, ligaw na mga babae into early prostitution. Kung ano-ano nangyari. Hindi lang alam nitong mga na this is happening all over the country every day. And what is really very tragic is this. When the family starts to crumble, there's no more family home. And invariably, the wife would look for another husband, would look for a job, usually, easily, doon sa abroad. At yung asawa, aalis, yung lalaki na sa droga, yung mga anak iniiwan sa kapitbahay, sa kapatid. And the ferocity of the loss of the Filipino family home has been destroyed. Kaya kung anong mangyari nito, the wife works in the Middle East. I am not zeroing on any particular country, mind you. But alam natin, there are tribes in the Middle East which would allow rape as part of the territory of being a house help. Kasama yan. Kasama talaga yan. So yan ang mahirap dyan. You have a wife there being crucified, being used, magpadala ng pera, tapos ang mga anak, nasa Cebu na rin. Kasi these are the guys that the Cebu people would really, stick by them until it crumbles, the resistance. And then you have plenty of this all over the country. Hindi lang nila alam. Yung sinasabi nila ng misery sa itong human rights, plus 10 yan. Not to count the victims of crimes perpetrated by people addicted to Cebu. That is the reason why I'm so vicious in my galit talaga ako. Kasi nilalaroan tayo. Well, I don't know. Any other president might, pero ako ayaw kong lalaroan ng Pilipino. Do not do it in my country because I will really kill you. That is a commitment. Owning safe, decent, and affordable housing is every Filipino's dream. But the housing market remains inaccessible to most of our countrymen. I renew my call for Congress to pass the National Housing Development Bill and the Rental Housing Subsidy Bill. These will enable all Filipinos, regardless of social status, to live in decent homes where their families can lead meaningful lives. I also call on Congress to amend Republic Act number 10912 for the Continuing Professional Development Act of 2016. In this time of great pandemic and forthcoming reconstruction, requiring professionals to undergo seminars is burdensome and not realistic. This must end. Ito pang isa. May mga profession. Singit ko na lang lahat to tell this is to inform the nation. May mga profession na they would require, I think it's the nicest, they would require them to come to Manila to retrain and for another round of expenses. Itong mga seminar na ito, dapat mahinto. I don't know in other provinces, but during my time itong sa barangay expeditions ng mga opisyal, hininto ko rin yan. And which reminds me, I will act on this also in due time. We hail our health professionals as heroes. Now is the time to pass the Advanced Nursing Education Act and the law instituting the Medical Reserve Corps. COVID-19 will not only be the last pandemic. We need to create National Disease Prevention Management Authority to better respond to future outbreaks. We count on Congress to full support. You can just let it remain for a while in the Department of Health kung wala pang pera, but you have to expand the services. It would also entail a little bit of money, but not really as much as expensive when you set up a department. In the long term, we are looking into the creation of the National Disease Prevention and Management Authority to better prepare for the pandemics, protect lives, and allow development to proceed even in the worst of times. We are counting on the full support of Congress for this critical, important endeavor. I don't know, but I leave it to Congress to really. It's another department. There seems that it could be a multi-layer, redundant thing between the health and the proposed department. I call on Congress to prioritize the passage of a law for the unified system of separation, retirement, and pension, and of the military and uniformed personnel, without, however, diminishing the benefits that our uniformed personnel are entitled to under existing laws. There is a need to adjust the pension system, which will be applicable only to the newly hired uniformed personnel, so as not to cause a ballooning effect against the budget of the military in the years to come, and yet maintain the pension benefits those already in service under the present law. This issue needs a solution now. Umpisa natin ngayon para hindi na maging problema sa sunod na mga taon. I want to, one of the, this is not politicking, I am not running, I cannot run anymore. Yung dinoble ko yung sweldo ng police pati army, it was really a clarion call para for them also to have a decent life and that they're able to get the things which ordinarily cannot be reached by any government employee. Ang akin doon is yung corruption. That maybe it might be a vain attempt, but maybe dagdagan ng sweldo para it would be a hedge against corruption. We must also modernize the Bureau of Fire Protection and the Bureau of Immigration with urgency. Alam mo, sa Davao, and if you go there, I can show you, one of the serviceable trucks, fire trucks that we have in the city of Davao. Of course, ang city meron ng sarili, aside from the Bureau of Fire, which is really national. Meron yung Bureau of Fire, would you believe it, serviceable still. Ang pangalan ng truck is Studebaker. Ang katawan, ang talagang matatag ang katawan. Kaya ang makina isuso. Pero okay pa rin. It can put out. But totoo. This is how this Bureau of Fire issue medyo na overlook natin ng matagal. I emphasize the creation of the Department of Disaster Resilience and our people's safety, which cannot be delegated to any council or commission. Equally important is the establishment of evacuation center in every city, province, municipality throughout the country. We must act before another major disaster shakes into action. Problem is disaster and even a fire. This cannot be made a study for projection when the earthquake would suddenly come and make a big crack there. Hindi natin alam talaga. Ang ibig kong sabihin, this will require more than just one brainwork kung paano talaga itong how to prevent or avoid disaster. It would be, by the way, just before starting, I was tempted to say it. Pero baka magtindigan kayo. It will be all right for me if Bongo will just stay. Wala akong problema. Sabi ko na this piece of speech of mine would be one of the longest SONAs that I will deliver. Nakita ko yung page pagbigay sa akin. Yung ibang input akin. Pati yung iba lahat. Ang nangyari po, binalik ko sa kanila. Make it short. Pagbalik sa akin, mas makapal na. Ako, putang ina. Nandyan na ngayon. Ito na ngayon. The responsible extraction and equitable distribution of natural resources remain among my non-negotiables. I reiterate the need for the passage of the National Land Use Act, which has been pending for decades. Pakisilip lang ho ninyo yan. For the rest of my term, I hope to see concerted efforts in protecting the environment. The rehabilitation of Boracay Island showcased our resolve to safeguard the environment. Boracay is doing well. because of its scenery. If it's only a coconut and a black sand, white sand and water, wala yan. Pero you add the visitors there, then it becomes a very tempting destination. We have seen remarkable emergence of the island back to its former glory. I want this sustained. I ask Congress to enact a law creating, importante ito, the Boracay Island Authority, or BIDA. We need it. I cannot stress enough the importance of agriculture. The growth of our economy depends on a robust agricultural sector. We must utilize the coconut, we must utilize the coconut levy for the welfare of our coconut farmers and the development of our coconut industry. I urge everybody, both of the executive department, pati ito, that ito yung pera na nakuha doon sa sequester. And itong perang malaking ito, gagamitin ito for the welfare of the farmers. The problem is, we can no longer trace who are the farmers of yesterday. Marcos is a distant star. We do not know. Ako alam ko because we had a little piece also that was covered by the land reform. Hindi na natin malaman kung sino ang may-ari. So I think Congress should look again and try to sort out how best the money can be utilized. I will not make any suggestion, but I leave it to Congress to decide what to do with it. I once again urge both houses of Congress to pass a version of the bill establishing the Coconut Farmers Trust Fund. Tulungan natin ang ating mga magsasaka pagka hindi mawawala yung pera, bilyon yan. Diyos ko po. Well, anyway, we have learned so many lessons along the way. I am also requesting Congress to pass the Rural Agricultural and Fisheries Development Financing System Act. We aim to provide adequate, accessible, and affordable food for every Filipino through the Plant program. After the build, I think this is here to achieve. A few good men, few good regional directors, DAR, and dedicated workers down below could make this thing a success. Mas madali ito kaysa build. Ito plant lang eh. It is more of how you try to convince the farmers to cooperate government for their benefit. This 66 billion agricultural stimulus package will help the agricultural and fisheries sector recover. I hope so. We need to build trust and confidence in online transactions, stronger protection on online consumers, and enabling measures for online business needed through the enactment of an Internet Transaction Act. This is very good. I thus direct the Department of Trade and Industry and other relevant agencies to work on it closely with Congress, ensuring that the provisions of the proposed bill are responsive to the needs of the consumers while promoting the growth of e-commerce in the country. If you are tired of clapping, you just say so I can make a shortcut. Pabilisan lang. On the path of better governance, we travel with other partners, both old and new, have helped bolstering the antiquated public health system, for bringing home our laid of Filipinos overseas, for filling in supply gaps for crucial medical supplies and equipment and staple food. For these and many more, the Philippines thanks all friendly nations. We will never forget your kindness and your timely support. Within ASEAN and beyond the Philippines, we will continue to work with partners to address global perils and ramp up cooperation to secure for our peoples greater peace, progress, and prosperity. The Filipino nation claims its rightful place in a community of sovereign states. Thus, we will continue to pursue an independent foreign policy. Let me be very clear about this. May I cut my prepared speech? Alam mo, I read a little over 3 weeks or last month na the Americans would intend to go back to Subic. I'll just put on record my thoughts. I have nothing against America. I have nothing against China. But if you put bases here, you double the spectacle of a most destructive thing. Just like Manila during the Second World War, during the retaking of this city, it was one of the most devastated cities in the world. Ayang maglagay-lagay ka ng base at this time. This will ensure, if war breaks out, because there would be atomic arsenals brought in, this will ensure the extinction of the Filipino race. We work without fail to protect our rights in the South China Sea, neither beholden nor a pawn to anyone. We broaden the boundaries of Philippine diplomacy. We build productive ties with everyone willing to engage us on the basis of equality and mutual respect. And we redefine our relationships with our most important partners, placing the country in a far better position to advance our interests in an evolving regional order and emerging global problems. Now, plenty of critics, both sides, claim about nothing has been done to retake forcefully or physically the South China Sea. Alam mo, unless we are prepared to go to war, I would suggest that we better just call off and treat this, I said, with the diplomatic endeavors. China is claiming it. We are claiming it. China has the arms. We do not have it. So, it's simple as that. They are in possession of the property. You remember property, you're a lawyer, property rights. They are, it has nothing to do with the Philippine laws on property, but it's akin to, they are in possession. So what can we do? We have to go to war. And I cannot afford it. Maybe some other president can, but I cannot. Inutil ako dyan, sabihin ko sa inyo. And I'm willing to admit it. Talagang inutil ako dyan. Walang magawa. I cannot. The moment I send my Marines there at the coastal shores of Palawan, tinamaan ng cruise missile lahat yan. Hindi pa nga set sail yan eh. Sabog na. Let me see again that the victory in a global battle against COVID-19 would take longer than we expect. Everyone's cooperation is needed. I know that you have, the Filipino people, have sacrificed a lot, but we have no other choice but to work together and to do even more. I must admit that our actions have been far from perfect. Totoo yan. I admit it. And there could be improvements here and there. But all of us in government, including myself, assure you that we will not stop until we get things right and better for you. I know that many of you are worried not only about health and safety, but also about our ability to move around and ride public transportation. The depletion of your savings due to the rising cost of goods and the loss of your incomes due to uncertainties in your jobs and livelihood, I assure you that your government will address squarely these problems and challenges to overcome them and proceed to a new normal. Marami ho talagang mawawalaan ng those for a middle income. They buy a car on installment basis. If you cannot keep up with the amortization, you lose it. You lose the car. And you are forced to ride on public utilities. Concomitantly, didiretso rin itong mga kriminal na rarami at crimes will increase. But let me assure you, for as long as I am president, there can never be a runaway crime in any of our cities. Hindi ako papayag na ganun. I can assure you, we will remain peaceful. Relatively peaceful. Hindi naman very peaceful. Pero kung sabihin mo na kagaya ng hold up dito, hold up, alam naman nila kung anong mangyari. You know what will happen to you. I am addressing myself to the criminals. You commit hold-ups, you commit rape, you commit all sorts of things, and you harm the public, then kaaway mo na ako. Pag bumalik kayo sa dati, kagaya noon, patong-patong na naman ang patay dito. Sigurado, hahanapin ko kayo. Do not ever go back to your old ways. Maghanap na lang kayo ng anong trabaho dyan. Magtiis kayo. To open up the economy to pre-COVID-19 levels at this time is not an option because whatever good it can produce will only be gobbled up or be outweighed by the bad it will generate sometimes. Haste makes waste. The recent upsurge of infection, when you open little windows of resumption of business, is proof of that. I am happy that I have talked to you today. You know, in other places, they opened up too early, too soon. America is one. China, well, fortunately, it was arrested on time. China and the rest, for those who open up and those who do not follow the protocols of at least the World Health Organization, they are suffering. And they have at least 140 deaths. And America, kukulang sila lahat. No nation on earth was really prepared for COVID. No amount of preparation because that kind of microbes visits about once every 100 years. Wala man yun. At mga tatay natin, what they suffered was Second World War. But tayo, we are not ready and therefore we will not gamble with the lives of the people. Certainly no one would want to end up in the negative side of the equation. Not me, not us. All I ask is that you continue to put your faith in your government and work with us in achieving what is best for the country and our people. Together, let us do, mahirap basahin kasi dito, the most that we can to ensure that this health, safety, and well-being of every Filipino, especially those severely affected, are taken care of. Together, we shall fight this pandemic with the same fervor as our campaign against illegal drugs, criminality, insurgency, and corruption in high places, and entrenched parochial interests. As a government worker, I am addressing each and every Filipino that the government cannot do this without your help. More than ever, we need to reinvigorate the deep-seated Filipino spirit of pakisama and malasakit within each and every one of us. We are being tested as a people and as a nation. Worse times loom ahead. But I do hope that this spirit of solidarity and unity will serve as a drumbeat to which we shall march in unison in our quest for the light at the end of the tunnel. I appeal to each and every Filipino, let us take care of one another. Ito ang panahon para magtulungan, hindi panahon para mamang dila ko. Hindi maglamang at pagkakaisa. My faith in the Filipino innate patience, resilience, and determination to bounce back is unwavering. Let us share our blessings with those who have little and those who have none. This is the time to bring out the best in us. The woes that weigh heavily on our shoulders may bend our back, but they shall not bend or break our spirit. From the rubbles of adversity, a more resilient and stronger nation, built on bayanihan and pagkakaisa, shall rise. Together we shall overcome. Before I pardon the time, but it was really the allotted time for my speech, I would just like to give a statement between us sa gobyerno kung hindi tayo nakakaintindihan. You know, Drilon extended, he was defending. I would like to ask Drilon, were you a part of Accra when this contract of Ayala Water was being drafted? And why are you fumigating? Bakit kasi ikaw lang ang galit? Nasabi mo na dynasty. You are a hypocrite. You know that you cannot pass an anti-dynasty law. Ikaw nandyan sa Congress, ikaw ang mauna dito. But you know, to take it against me for protecting my country is something which I really resent. Alam mo, you describe using the dictionary the synonym ng mga oligarchy, kung ano. Then you proceeded to characterize everyone, every name, and then said that oligarchy is not bad at all, because not all oligarchies are bad. True. But ito, to my countrymen, the oligarchy that exists in this country is the oligarchy that existed during the Spanish time. And the Spanish lands and the friar lands and all the benefits that were passed on to the insulares who did not go back to Spain, or to the Spaniards and into their... But that was long ago. It has been forgotten. This is the oligarchy that controls the Philippines by what? By taking control of the water and the electricity and power. Yan ang oligarchy mo, Drilon. Wala nang oligarchy dito except that they have control. Look at how can you now craft a new contract? Because I would insist that you pay the billions and billions that you collected. For example, water treatment. Oh, nandyan sa kontrata. It's in the billing. They've been collected since 1997. Ilang bilyon na nga wala ni isa. Not even a faucet was built for a water treatment facility. Yan ang mahirap sa... You do not protect the oligarchs here. You are the one. Ikaw lang mag-isa. And I suspect that you were also the one or help when you were there in the Accra. We do not even know ang mga abogado sa public documents. Hindi nga alam. Hindi natin alam kung nakagraduate ba o hindi. Wala. Would you think Ayala would get the services of those? Ayala got Accra. Accra did it. Ikaw galing ka doon, most of you, more successful lawyers sa corporation. You handle big corporate. Yan ang mahirap. O, bangga tayo dito. Hinawakan ninyo eh. Hindi ka pwede kayo. Kita mo, noong nag-increase, walang tubig, pinuputol yung tubig. Ang tao, bumigay kasi hindi pwede ang tayo maligo. hindi uminom. Electricity, ayaw mag-increase. O ayan, wala ka. Palaging brown out lahat. I'm sorry, but I have to say this to you. I do not like it. It's not the time for it. But since it is the time for the SONA, for people to know and people to really get the facts, then, and the right of the people to be heard. Tayo na naman ang tao magsano. Hinawakan ninyo yung tubig, pati electricity. Yun ang oligarchy. Kaya ako sinabi ko noong kumpanya, corruption is not here. Yung mga customs, maliit yan. It's there upstairs. And I was really unprovidential. Dumating yung panahon na hindi ko hiningi. Then I saw the contract. Nung nakita ko yung contract na. Tsaka yung linya na yung choice, yung linya ng it belongs to government. The best of the transmission lines, whatever, government gets it first before anybody else. Thank you. I am true.
Okay.
Yan po. Okay, yan po yung tunghayan ang mensahe ng Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte sa kanyang SONA, mensahe sa taong bayan.
Tama naman ang sinabi ng Pangulo, no, na ang bill na gagawa para pagbawalan ang political dynasty, meron talaga yan sa ating saligang batas, prohibition against political dynasty. Pero gagawa muna ng batas.
Kailangan ng enabling law.
As mandated by law. So tumbong na doon si Senador Drilon na pinasaringan ang pamilya Duterte. Sinabi ng Pangulo, kayo na mismo gumawa dyan sa Kongreso. Pero ang tanong dyan, suntok sa buwan, kaya nilang gawin.
Ayun, ang magandang tanong. Pero also, marami rin po nabanggit ang Pangulo na talagang itong panahon natin ngayon na ating kinaroroonan is really troubled times,
Yes.
And of course, pinasalamatan po niya yung mga yung mga nag-aalay ng kanilang buhay, yung mga nasa front line, at nakikiramay din siya kasama ng buong Filipino people.
You just heard President Rodrigo Duterte's fifth State of the Nation address for the Batasang Pambasa. His penultimate SONA spanned more than an hour. This is the first blended SONA with some lawmakers from both chambers of Congress and officials from the Executive Department witnessing the address via virtual means. Physical audience was limited to 50, but actual turnout was smaller, with 7 of those invited testing positive for COVID-19. President Rodrigo Duterte opened his speech with a tone explaining that the pandemic stopped the country's prosperity in its tracks. He thanked the families of those who died due to the virus and expressed gratitude to those who willingly provided service amid the crisis. The chief executive then ranted against Senator Franklin Drilon following the latter's comments that oligarchs don't need to be rich to be in control. The president said it was a swipe at his own family. The president also blasted the Lopezes, whom he said used ABS-CBN to battle political opponents. He later on said the oligarchy controls the Philippines by taking control of water and electricity.
Media is a powerful tool in the hands of oligarchs like the Lopezes, who use their media outlets in their battles with political figures. I am a casualty of the Lopezes during the 2016 election.
Going through the government's accomplishments, he said more than 4 million families benefited from the Pantawid Pamilya program. Mr. Duterte also commended the country's hosting of the 30th Southeast Asian Games. Mr. Duterte then earned his first applause from the audience when he tackled the credit ratings upgrade backed by the country.
We received a BBB plus credit rating despite ASEAN credit rating downgrades and negative outlook revisions worldwide.
But the president said the country's gains in his first 3 years of office were put to the test by the virus. While the impact was unprecedented, he said the country was able to withstand the headwinds. President Duterte thanked all the people in the front lines, including IATF members, the military, and Congress.
May I again reiterate my thanks to you, the men and women of Congress, for the effort you invested in passing that law. I hope that we can get some of the same treatment of purpose and the fastness to support the passage of the Biennial Recover to act as one.
When we come back, we'll speak with analysts and experts from the academe and the business sector, and we will dig deeper into the President's words. Our coverage of the President's fifth State of the Nation address will be back. Keep it here on One News. I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching One News special coverage of the President's fifth State of the Nation address. In his fifth State of the Nation address, President Duterte reiterated his stance against face-to-face classes. The chief executive said it will compromise the safety of students as well as teachers. He then vowed to boost connectivity, especially in far-flung areas. The president also challenged...
We will prioritize the connection of all last-mile schools and those with no electricity supply can have it via satellite and energized via solar panels. By 2022, before I step down, the plan shall be realized.
The president then challenged telco providers Smart and Globe to shape up by December. He said he warned them that to better shape up, deliver better services, or face something that they would not want.
I call on our communication companies to improve their services lest we be forced to take drastic steps to address the less than deal service that the public is getting from you. If you are not ready to improve, I might just as well close all of you and we revert back to the line telephone. I'll be straight. Smart, pati itong Globe, ilang taon na ito. At ang sagot palagi sa akin, the party cannot be reached. Saan pala pumunta yung na yun? Kindly improve the services before December. I want to call Jesus Christ to Bethlehem. Better have that line cleared.
In his speech, President Duterte also made known his staunch support for the revival of the death penalty.
I reiterate the swift passage of a law reviving the death penalty by lethal injection for crimes specified under the Comprehensive Dangerous Act of 2002. I did not hear so much clapping, so I presume that they are not interested. Wala kang... Why the drug syndicates continue to operate just like the countries of Colombia, Mexico, and it is being played inside the national penitentiaries. Para tayong talagang binababoy tayo. Sabihin ko sa inyo. But this is not a time for storytelling. SONA kasi ito. So, dito na. This law will not only help us deter criminality, but also save our children from the dangers posed by the illegal and dangerous drugs.
To help us further process the President's speech, joining us via Zoom are economist Andy Masigan, political analyst Antonio Contreras, as well as journalist and Professor Danilo Arao. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Okay, Andy, let me start with you. You're an entrepreneur. The President had a lot of things that he wanted to convey to MSMEs, getting the economy back on track, trying to reassure them. At the same time, Mr. Masigan, as you know, we always invite you. You're not just an entrepreneur, you're also an economist. In that sense, apart from COVID, oligarchies were also a big part of his message. They were practically the only times when he would ad-lib for a relatively completely scripted, sticking to script SONA for the president. he had a very pointed and very strong message to the two telcos in particular, to public utilities in general, wearing both hats, both as an entrepreneur as well as an economist. Did you hear what you want to hear? Were there things you were missing? And in terms of the overall message to the private sector and to the public, was there any concern that was also generated with you?
Well, let me speak as an entrepreneur first. I was glad, number one, that he mentioned about lessors and banks, who he said should give relief to MSMEs in as far as amortizations and rental payments are concerned. This is well and good, but it was only an admonition and not a direct order. Those are two different things. The truth here, Robbie, is the bloodbath on the MSME sector has been really brutal. We're talking about close to 40% of the 940,000 MSMEs in operation have already closed their doors permanently or are about to. So they need immediate relief. A lot has been said about government's subsidy program. They provide loan guarantees and provided extra liquidity in the banking system for MSMEs to avail. But the problem is it is left in the hands of the banking system. And the problem here is that the banking system lends selectively. And unfortunately, those who are involved in high-risk industries are not given the license they need. So the situation is growing more dire for the MSME sector. I would have wanted the president to address this.
Okay. And in terms of his message to what he called the oligarchs, and particularly his pledging and vowing that over the next 2 years, the telco industry is something that I will look into, and there was a better shape up or else message. How do you think that will be taken by the country, by economists, and by the private sector as well?
Well, for the public, it's a very popular statement to make, and for sure that will boost the acceptance rating of this particular SONA. No doubt about that. It's very popular. It could be detrimental to investors looking at the Philippines as a possible area to invest, because these Globe and Smart have legitimate franchises. And it cannot be so cavalierly taken away on the back of bad service. Besides, who determines what bad service is? No, I don't think we really test it by calling Jesus Christ in Bethlehem. I don't think that's possible. So what I'm saying is that there could be a backlash on investments coming in. Not that there are many at this point, but there could be a blowback on this.
Okay. Now, Mr. Contreras, I mean, the president did say explicitly he wants to talk about the final 2 years of his term. He laid out his plans, a lot of things. He called for the creation of a number of departments, one for overseas Filipinos, a department as well to address future pandemics and managing other outbreaks. And what did you like about the tenor of the president? And his message for the final 2 years, and how do you see the next 2 years proceeding and moving if this was a defining statement from the president?
Well, actually, I didn't like what I heard. So it's not an issue of liking, it's an issue of, did he say something new? And the point about this creation of new departments, it won't solve the problem if you have the same kind of structural problems that we have in the country right now. And so the question that I'm always asking is, whenever I listen to a SONA, what is new here? What is inspiring about it? And the president, of course, his style of speech is, it's kind of boring. And the only time that he becomes very agitated is when he's going into segueing into his threats and attacks. I agree with Andrew, on the issue that he could have been more inspiring, which is basically about less. He just admonished them. He just admonished them. And in fact, it's something that needed a lot more meat. And then on the case of China, this is this is his fifth SONA. And until now, he is still harping on the war discourse, that the only way that we can protect our interests in the South China Sea is that if we declare war on China. That is something that is not, any political scientist will tell you that it's not the way we do international relations. It's not an either or thing. It's not just because you want to claim something, that you're going to wage war. And then you have, for me, I don't want to dwell on this anymore because Andrew mentioned about the economics. But I just want to talk about this, his beef about oligarchy. And he's saying that oligarchy that we have right now is the one that we inherited during the Spanish times. My God naman, anyone who deal in political history and who is familiar with the theory of oligarchy would know that oligarchy is a dynamic construct. Many things have changed already. It is an things evolve.
Yes.
And so I think these are just some of the things. I don't want to nitpick, but I'm a teacher, I'm a professor. Ranjit here, I see him. Maybe he can also voice his own opinion. But it's something that really, as a political scientist, I'm kind of scared.
Yes.
When you are a president and then you are mouthing these things.
Yes.
What am I going to tell my students?
Yes, but at the same time, Mr. Contreras, one is, in fairness, that's never been the style of the president. I mean, all past SONAs, he's gone for the urgency of the problems that he's seeing, not necessarily inspiring. At the same time, in this particular SONA, it is framed by a very abnormal situation defined by COVID. A lot of things he cannot do. He was very open about that. Short of inspiring, what was the most that you think a SONA this year could have aspired for?
He could have focused more on the COVID-19 pandemic. He could have focused more on what we're going to do. Because that is a problem that we have instead of being sidelined by all these other oligarchic brands. The problem that we have right now is what are you going to do? And that's why the issue about lessors, that is something that will resonate on people. The mediums, the MSMEs, and then you just admonish them. And then you devote a lot of minutes on Drilon.
Okay.
What good will that achieve?
Yes, Andy.
Can I just have a rejoinder here? Because Professor Contreras made a very good point about China, and I have to correct. There's something wrong with what the president said, because it is not true that China has possession of the West Philippine Sea. It is in fact the Philippines who has legal possession, and we won that in The Hague, and that is recognized by the international community. So it's not true that China has possession, and it's not true to impose your ownership way of diplomacy. You automatically go to war. That's just not the way it works.
Yeah,
So
certainly when it comes to the word of possession, we've been there before. The first time you said that China's in possession, we're probably expecting the same officials, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, qualifying. Again, remember the correction before. He didn't say possession, he said position. And they were trying to make a distinction between the two. But the preposition this time was really possession of the South China Sea. In any case, let me just bring in Mr. Professor Danny Arao in this conversation. Danny, apart from what Professor Contreras and Andy Masigan has been bringing up, of course, every time we talk about SONA and every time it is time for the president to address the nation, we talk about human rights. We talk about security. We talk about national security. We talk about terrorism. He said that criminals, terrorists, the corrupt are taking advantage while the government is preoccupied. He said, but on the front of human rights, he also said, we will not neglect our obligation to fight for rights, to fight for human rights. But he also started by saying, human rights first and foremost for me is the right of the Filipinos to live in peace, to be secure, to have food on the table, and so on. How did you find that as a journalist?
Well, of course, we have to look at the empirical data, and we don't just need to look at the number of extrajudicial killings due to the drug war. We have to look at the extrajudicial killings of activists or even ordinary citizens. And lest we forget, the killings of journalists. There had been 16 work-related killings of journalists during his term, and we should not forget the casualty also of the culture of impunity. Rappler, ABS-CBN, and Philippine Daily Inquirer, these are not just anecdotal evidence. And lest we forget, this is the second time in the history of the State of the Nation address under Duterte that ABS-CBN has been mentioned. So it's the second time. So it holds that, quote-unquote distinction. Although not in a good way, because we are seeing here the vindictiveness of the president. On one hand, he may say that he is after the human rights of people and he wants to uphold and protect the basic rights, including freedom of speech and freedom of the press. But right now, what he's saying is the exact opposite of what is actually happening. His tirade against the Lopezes is short of admitting that he is somewhat behind, albeit indirectly, the denial of franchise of ABS-CBN. So we have to look with utmost concern the subtext behind the State of the Nation address, because aside from his threat to expropriate the franchise of the telecommunications companies, he seems to be trying to also expropriate for government use the frequencies of TV stations purportedly for remote learning. But we all know that under this current atmosphere, these are just excuses to further strengthen mechanisms for authoritarian rule.
Okay, Mr. Contreras, I want to pick up on something like that because the president did say something really very casually offhand. I don't know if a lot of people caught that, but the president did emphasize it. He said, if you listen closely, my entire speech is a plea. If you listen closely, everything I'm saying is my request to Congress. Given everything that the president said, how do you see Congress behaving in the final 2 years? Are there any clear marching orders that is of particular concern to you if we were to take this as a plea?
Well, first of all, I don't really believe that it's a plea. Well, he said that it is a plea, but he has a supermajority in the lower house. You just saw the voting in the ABS-CBN franchise, 70-11, and even Ms. Vilma Santos was shocked why there are only 11. So this is an empirical evidence that indeed, he has control of Congress. Maybe not the Senate. His control in the Senate is not as strong as his control in the House. So of course, it's a way. It's my plea, but the question is, what will be the dynamics now that he is practically going to be entering into the lame duck phase of his presidency? Will there be new? Will people gravitate towards other political centers or political figures? We don't know. Maybe the reason why he's having this kind of tone and at the same time asserting his power is because he's trying to play his card well. That I am not yet. I'm going to fight this out. I'm not lame duck.
Yeah.
Remember there is one thing that really something that he also mentioned in passing that I caught. He said almost like an obiter dictum that because it was just in passing that he's not going to run anymore in 2022.
Yes.
He mentioned that. Yeah. It's not emphasized, but he said that. So I said, he said that in passing. But the question is that what are the other strategies? What are the things up his sleeve?
Yeah.
This. So
I hear what you're saying, Professor Contreras, that it could be that these were very emphatic statements, very emphatic lines, precisely because you're correct. 2021, we're heading into elections, and Congress and all these political players will be splitting up into hundreds of political interests, more concerned about their local dynamics. But come to that, what's the answer? What does the president still have? What are his cards still to play to try to make sure that even if he's leading into, as you said, a lame duck phase, how can he mitigate against that? What card does he still have to?
Well, the thing is, I think these last 2 years will be very critical to the president because I think his Achilles heels are maybe showing. He is a person who thrives on being in control of his narrative. Even his crisis, he can brand it. He branded his crisis, he was in control of it. Drugs, he controlled it. Terrorism, he controlled it. Even his war against ABS-CBN, he was in control. But now he has this unseen enemy, which is the coronavirus.
Hello.
Okay?
Hello.
Yeah,
Joanna.
yeah. He has this new enemy which is invisible.
Okay.
And so it was not part of his playbook. So doon siya baka doon ma-erode ang kanyang teflon.
Yeah.
You know, so this is something that is not for me. I find this last 2 years interesting because he's lame duck. He's facing an enemy that the narrative which he cannot control. But the attempts that he's doing, or his people are doing, or tend to backfire. Yung contraption sa motorsiklo na talagang very unscientific, yung pag-chismosa, ginagawang parte na ng public health strategy. Marami pa yan.
Yeah.
So, nakikita it's imploding. So, this is going to be, the 2 years was going to be very exciting.
Yeah. On the other side of it, Andy, you just wrote, I read your article in Business World, parsing through the latest economic data. We've slipped into recession already. In fairness, the whole world has slipped into recession, but the predictions are at least another 2 quarters ahead of us, and so on. What happens, not just politically, economically, what's the worst case scenario right now if the economy gets out of control?
Well, I think the president missed a very, very important opportunity today. Because if there's anything he needed to inspire, he needed to give that confidence not only to the business community, but to the population as a whole, who are scared both for their health and both for their livelihood. Now, the prognosis, Rob, is not very promising. We're looking at, we're hoping for a V-shaped recovery, but that's not likely to happen because of the holdups in the disbursements of the stimulus fund. We're looking at a 3.3 growth rate for 2021 on the back of a 5.9% contraction this year in 2020. So it's not going to be a very buoyant recovery for several reasons. One, government is not spending the way it should be. 2, business confidence is down. 3, there are too many corporate closures. And you have to look at it this way. You have say, 400,000 corporate closures plus trying to absorb 7.9 million displaced Filipinos. Now, if you have 400,000 closures, who's going to absorb all these people when things get better? So we have to save corporate Philippines first, and this SONA could have been used to encourage, or to ensure, or to inspire confidence. No, I'm afraid that it didn't do that.
Yeah. But as I think, as both of you will also acknowledge, and you also, Professor Araw, to say something like he could have used this time to reassure the business community and the corporate Philippines in particular would not be the most populist thing to say. And in fact, he did say the more populist things. Now, Professor Araw, question lang to you, because I know you in particular are not one to look for inspiration when President Duterte speaks. Far from it. You're very transparent about that. But trying to be the most optimistic side at the start of this SONA, what's that you were hoping for?
Well, of course, the least I was hoping for was him cursing his way to end his speech, saying, "I am true" as the final 3 words, taking potshots at Drilon. It's not something that you would expect from a SONA. But then again, you may also counter-argue, parang hindi na tayo nasanay sa ating Pangulo. And I'm sure Harry Roque and the PCOO will go into a spin doctoring spree by tomorrow to correct certain notions on the speech, or certain miscommunications that may have happened during the speech. But what we can see right now, maybe it was intentional or maybe it was not, is that really this particular administration has clear authoritarian tendencies. And it's not just the media that are under attack right now, but even the basic rights of the people. Even the proposal for the revival of the death penalty for drug-related cases, we all know that this can be used and abused to include other crimes, particularly those that may be labeled as terrorism, because we know that the current administration is so focused on, pushing for an anti-terror law. They didn't do that before the pandemic, and now they're able to use the lockdown as an opportunity to push for such draconian measures. So that's the tale of the tape right now, insofar as, corporate Philippines or whatever Philippines we may call it. No thanks to the speech that was done by the current president.
Okay. Now, very quick, lang Andy Masigan and Professor Contreras, because we're running out of time and we have a very important guest coming up as well. As you know, there will be a lot of clarifications after every SONA of President Duterte. Is there one particular clarification that you'll be looking forward to in the next 24 hours? Andy and Mr. Contreras, final thoughts.
Maybe I'll go first. So with 20 seconds, what I want to say is this. This administration has authoritarian tendencies, and that's where it's taking the country. On an economic point of view, we just want to know, what are you going to do with so much power?
Okay.
What are you going to do with it? So we can plan accordingly. That's all I want to know.
Okay. Mr. Contreras?
For me, I want him to focus on being a unifier. He's a very divisive president. I wish he could have had more a SONA that look at, forget about all these divisions and look at the corporate Philippines as a partner in solving these problems. But he's so divisive. He's fighting all of them. And so I think that's important. Hindi pwedeng sumulong tayo pag hati doon kasi siya mas magaling siya pag bumaba, bumibira.
Okay.
Pero yung unifier ang kailangan natin. So apparently it's a tall order.
Okay, Professor Ara, Andy Masigan, Professor Contreras, maraming salamat for joining us. At this point, we'll be speaking to Senator Franklin Drilon, who was singled out by President Duterte in SONA earlier today. Good evening, Senator Drilon.
Good evening, Robbie. Good evening.
Naka-Zoom po ba kayo kanina? Were you watching and did you catch it when President Duterte referred to you?
I was watching on television his State of the Nation, and right off the bat, let me say that if I defended and criticized the non-renewal of the franchise, it was because, to me, the issue was freedom of speech. The Lopezes are just incidental. I owe nothing to the Lopezes, and but I thought that it was not correct. Hindi po makatarungan na pinutol na hindi renew ang kanilang praksisa. Especially now that in view of the COVID pandemic, people need information, and certainly the ABS-CBN was providing information for people. So principally because of the freedom of speech, and especially at this time when people needed information, I took the position that it was not correct for Congress to not renew the franchise. And moreover, the livelihood of 11,000 employees were at stake. And now today, I was saying that hindi po, it's nothing. The Lopezes are just incidental.
Okay. Well, thank you for your side, Senator. But since nandiyan kayo, pag-usapan na rin natin, taking yourself out of the picture and taking yourself out of being the singular person that the President Duterte was really mentioning, halos wala siyang ad-lib except to talk to you and to address you. But taking yourself out of the picture, how would you assess the fifth SONA?
Well, I did. I want to read it and hear it again. But I was hoping that, and I don't know if I did catch it, about what is the way forward insofar as our country is concerned, insofar as the pandemic is concerned. I still have to review and look at the speech as to what is our way forward insofar as the pandemic is concerned.
Okay. Maraming salamat po, Senator Franklin Drilon.
Thank
And that has been our special coverage on the President's Fifth State of the Nation address. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News.